In 2016, it was launched on Netflix, the documentary Minimalism, a documentary about important things. The documentary of 20 minutes, basically, shows nothing of two friends rumored to a simpler life. Joshua Fields, Milburn, and Ryan Nicodemus, were professionals in the market area. I think, successfully, professionally, the personal life of the two did not correspond to the ones that were more successful. They were unhappy. The modern life pressure made them wonder if everything that they had acquired was worth it. From then on, they sought a lifestyle of alternative life, something to be surprised by contemporary materialism. Highly anticipated, the minimalists or the minimalists, the couple of friends wrote a blog, launched several books, and in the documentary they interviewed a series of people between architects, sociologists, employees, artists to understand what means living a minimalist life. So, the success of the documentary made the movement gain popularity. What was only a concept of art in the age of 50 and 60, it happened today to represent a philosophy of life. The movement takes a reduction in the number of good materials of a person, literally having a minimum of what is needed, if you live alone, so that there is more than a dish, a cup and few tables. The minimalists believe that to take advantage of things really important to their return, they do not need so many distractions and no need to adhere to the consumerism as a source of happiness. But the minimalism is disseminated so much that in some aspects it ended up becoming something mainstream, and with that it also ended up becoming a highly lucrative philosophy, despite being based on not consuming what is not necessary. In addition to this, the obsession for celebrating things turned the minimalism a toxic idea for many people, generating even more worries and anxiety. So, at the point minimalism lets it be a lifestyle of beneficial life and a reflection on the way of consumption to spend only a tendency to sell certain items, or even where minimalism can be healthy, without it being able to become a prejudicial compulsion. Today, many people in the social networks continue preaching lifestyle, but with several others, realizing that the search for minimalism can be used as a game of marketing or worse the quality of life. The question is, the minimalism is only one more movement to control your life and tell you what you can or not have? The minimalism is a concept that arose again from artistic moments after the Second War. They sought what was called pure beauty, and emerged in New York in 1950 and 1960, and was known as minimal art. This name is due to the use of visual elements by the artists of the time, which had to be more simple and with little colors, like in the case of the work of Donald Judd and Saul Lewitt, who valued the geometric shapes, pure and symmetric shapes. But it was not only in the art that this movement was made in order to highlight, in design and architectural design, it is also possible to understand minimalism tendencies. Nowadays, the reduction of information and objects that compose houses or business buildings has been more and more common. The idea is to create practical environments that value space by means of neutral and simple design, which give a modern weapon to any move. For those who want to adopt this lifestyle of life, minimalism means basically having less poses, whether they are objects by house or normal clothes. Literally having less of everything. If this is not necessary, you do not need it. Imagine having to reduce 2/3 of the clothes you have today. That is why most people are minimalistic, representing a radical change and propose to leave the spirit consumerist behind. That is because those who are minimalistic seek to live a simpler life and disappear than consider the pleasures of consumption, which can help to heal fast and focus their attention on what is really important, such as realizing personal actions, self-knowledge and autonomy. Despite the minimalistic movement having as a base the same precedent around the world, it became a concept that can be compared to different realities. In the end, an American minimalist will be different from the Brazilian minimalist. It may seem that the minimalism is a movement of restrictions, saying there is no product or that there is a house in Scandinavia standard, and maybe it can represent only restrictions, but the case is that for the people who follow this philosophy, it can at least mean to travel more or to realize dreams that would not be possible with a consumer disappearing. But those who ask themselves what is the true minimalism, would it be a simple created style to help those who want to open up objects considered useless, or really it is a philosophy of life that preaches the fate of life as we know, in the search of trying to live something totally new and that has a meaning? Whether in social networks or in a conversation with friends, there is a lot of speculation about the minimalism, which for a long time has become a representative movement of a philosophy of life alternatively in the middle of the culture of the consumer, causing the idea that to be happy is necessary to have many good and pay for them. The car of the year, the cell phone of the moment, the house of dreams or that huge television that anyone would like to have in the room, all this is considered superfluous to those who believe that it is possible to live very little. The essence of the minimalism seeks to reduce as much as possible the habit of buying and consuming, which for most of us can be associated with personal satisfaction and is the right to be momentary. However, for those who follow the minimalism philosophy, to be surprised by this habit is necessary, whether because of ethics or major goals. In November of 2021, the Forbes Online published an article enumerating several researches, among them led by Joshua Hook from University of North Texas, where he pointed out that the people who adhered will undoubtedly feel positively reflected in the well-being. Joshua's study of Jackson Dux and Lee, as much as the motivation, revealed that certain people decide to adopt practices before consumption by various reasons, but some find themselves as true heroes capable of changing the world, in the middle of the anti-consumer culture. Others already seek only a personal transformation and believe that the desired material is one of the best paths for this. For any reason, the minimalism seems to have internet as its main vehicle of propagation. Currently, the social networks are a reference to any way that it wants to create. Once it is much easier to disseminate an idea on the web and reach everyone in seconds. Virtual communities and even influencers develop a lifestyle of simply volunteering. In an interaction with people who are already adapted or want to understand better how it works. Different from what happened with other radical movements that provided alternative lifestyles to the common era, like the hippies and the punks, the minimalism was gaining space because it was equal to the various aspects of the daily life, the fashion, architecture, social and personal. Anyone can adhere to the minimalism in greater or lesser degree, without needing to have only moves in neutral or monochromatic roles. On the contrary of revolutionary revolutions that marked a time thanks to its cultural and political influence, the minimalism is much easier to be practiced, since it does not necessarily require a radical and definitive attitude in its most balanced degrees. Buy recycled paper, consume products, ecologically correct, and decrease the amount of pieces in the clothing store, are some of the propagated attitudes by some blogs. For many, it may seem difficult to define exactly what is necessary and what is not, but of all the way that lives in modern society needs to consume. And the question is that consumption notions do not just limit themselves to survival, regardless of the philosophy that follows. Currently we consume several products that in teas could be discarded, but to open their hands would be like giving God to society. For example, the smartphone, which became the main means of communication, is even a tool of work for many people. Another important factor was the pandemic of 2020 and 2021, where as a result of the restrictions, the vast majority of the population was confined by having to give it only what was between four walls. The scarcity of travel and experiences made online purchases one of the few pleasures still available at that time, placing in check the minimalist style of many people. But thanks to the flexibility of the minimalism, it becomes a concept in evolution. It is not known which is the true lifestyle minimalist, since for some it is necessary to reverse all the habits of consumption, while for others some changes are enough to make difference. But as everything exists, the exaggeration can end up bringing undesirable consequences, and the case where the search incessantly by the minimalism cannot be exactly what is expected. Less is more. This is the lack of minimalist, which seeks to live a deaccelerated and distant life of the pleasures that consumption can proportionate. But at the same time, the concept of being minimalist is still an incognito, since the majority of people associate the term only to deliver objects and nothingness. Even if this is a matter, the minimalism did not escape to become a consumption product, and this happens due to the conception that many people have the respect of the term. The thought that less and more we want to have little items, but also induced to pay more expensive by what we decided to buy. It is simple. If you decide to open your hand to have several pieces of clothes on your closet, I think you need to be of quality and, in a certain way, have to occupy the places of the 10 camisons that you decided to wear. And that's where an excess comes. You spend a fortune to have 4 or 5 camisons with a simpler and cheaper design, which adds to being of higher quality. The minimalism has become a matter of status and consequently helps sell products that follow the simplicity package. But many times, these products do not pass from invention so that you pay more expensive when you want to replace what you played outside, without thinking twice if needed or not, something that you did to achieve the goal of minimalism, having the minimum possible things. Without realizing that you end up falling into the habit of avoiding the consumer, the obsession by minimalism can lead to decisions equivocated, since the simple fact of being able to do things will not become a better or higher person. In fact, there are advantages in a minimalist style. A simpler life ends up providing us more time and less worries, which allows us a greater control of situations and more clarity to think about the objectives that really matter. Living surrounded by objects and taking a lifestyle that does not deal with your reality, does not lead you anywhere. On the contrary, it will only bring a tiring routine and a financial life that is broken. But it is necessary to be careful with the extremism. The search generated by minimalism is toxic when the desire to avoid expenses turns prey to health. Open hands of objects and services that could bring greater comfort and quality of life in the name of minimalism is a type of extremism. And this, probably, will only bring prejudices to the long term. Are numerous videos of minimalistic or people who simply depend on having a defective objects. The minimalism can help to understand better what is priority, but it is necessary to be careful not to fall into the fallacy of less and more, since, not always, this affirmative is absolute truth. Still, this phrase has turned into a mode, and minimalistic in the whole world, which was a transformation in a kind of mantra superior to simplicity. It is not something that can be applied to all the lifestyle. The obsession to live with less ends up becoming a concept of minimalism much more than it should be, and transforming it into a kind of competition for status, which will totally counter what really matters. In the end, when the mode passes and the other styles of life turns into a tone, will the minimalism still be cool? Tell me what your opinion about minimalism, comment below and see what the person is talking about. For this video, a big hug and see you later.